The history of BattleTech is divided into eras and sub-eras, very often grouped inside series of events, new factions, battle mechs, and technologies, as well as release products. I will provide in this record a more extensive one. I would ask everyone to take all the following historic demarcations in what follows with a grain of salt, as this is just another historian view on a complex subject that is known as the interstellar age of humanity. The first one is the Alliance era, from 2005 to 2101, during which the Western Alliance and later Terran Alliance will spend decades to bring more than 120 nations under one banner, with a global government to centralize their combined efforts at preventing wars among the member states, stabilize the international economy, and start researches on early space exploration and colonization. The Exodus era, from 2102 to 2314, began with the success of the Deimos project and the historic jump of the Terran Alliance ship Pathfinder to Tau City in 2108, which opened the way for periods of mass migration under the supervision of the Terran Alliance. The first Alliance survey in 2172 reported over 100 colonies. By 2235, the fourth Alliance survey counted more than 600 worlds. With the expansion from the first Exodus, the issue of clear communications across the vast human sphere, impending governance, and widespread corruption would run amok in the Terran Alliance. The Outer Reaches rebellion would begin in 2236, and while the Terran Alliance didn't concede defeat, its troops never managed to break the insurrectionists, despite sustaining heavy losses. As more declarations of independence were reaching the Terran Alliance Parliament, the futility of the conflict was finally realized and the troops sent back home. During this period of political chaos, the Demarcation Declaration was passed, saying that from 2242 onward, all colonies beyond the 30 light years boundary from Terra would be granted independence, whether they desired it or not. This brutal cutting of all ties between Terra and the colonies produced in return another massive migration towards more habitable worlds, the Second Exodus. This period marks also the collapse of the Terran Alliance and the emergence of the very first interstellar proto-states. The Age of War era, from 2315 to 2570, started with an early period of consolidation, with the rise of the great houses and the foundation of the most prominent periphery nations would begin in this era. While the First Endurian War, which began in 2398, would mark in most official records the start of the Age of War, the truth is the Endless Wars period started way before, as the interstellar states would expand their power through economic, diplomatic, and military actions on neighboring systems. However, it was during this mentioned conflict that historians will mark an escalation of violence and atrocities between the emerging interstellar empires, which resulted with the adoption of the Aris Conventions in 2412 by all major powers of the inner sphere, which legitimized warfare as diplomacy by other means, but resulted in a more civilized way of fighting that would usually spare the civilians. Nonetheless, this state of constant war took its toll on all the great houses, and soon mediation, even peacemaking efforts, will start in earnest. This will accumulate with the unification of the inner sphere under the banner of the Star League in 2571. The Star League era, from 2571 to 2780, it concluded decades of tireless war with the creation of a political and military alliance between all great houses. During those 2 centuries, humanity will experience both a golden age as well as the creation of the most powerful military in human history. This era encompasses 3 sub-eras: Early, Golden Age, and Late. Early Star League, 2571 to 2607, starts with the foundation of the Star League, and also the refusal of the periphery states to join in 2575. The Pollux Proclamation in the same year will start preparation for the Reunification War, which lasted for 40 years and ended with the periphery nations integrated as territorial states. Following the war, a widespread rebuilding program will start to fix the ravages of war, but that will never truly make the periphery forgive their state of occupation by the Star League Defense Force. The Golden Age, 2608 to 2650, also labeled the Good Years, is a period of economic growth that will bring technological advances at prodigious speed, and billions would enjoy those years of peace and prosperity. The Late Star League, 2651 to 2780, through numerous council edicts in that period, will cause the rifts between the periphery and the Star League, as well as build up tensions among the great houses, which will start the downfall of the Star League itself. 3 official hidden wars will shake the very foundation of the Star League, but it will be the Amherst Civil War, with the death of the First Lord, extermination of the Cameron line, and the collapse of the Terran hegemony, as well as the SLDF Exodus, that will allow the remaining 5 great houses to wage war upon each other. The Succession Wars era, from 2781 to 3080, is the period of time when the great houses disbanded the Star League and the Unisphere collapsed into centuries of warfare known as the Succession Wars that will result in massive loss of lives and of technology across most world in the human sphere. This era encompasses 4 sub-eras: Early, Lost Tech, Renaissance, and Collapse. The Early Succession Wars, from 2781 to 2864, when the first Great House leader was self-appointed as the new First Lord of the Star League, all the others were drawn into a conflict named as the First Succession War. The liberal use of weapons of mass destruction by all powers to deprive their rivals of any strategic acquisitions brought massive loss of life, with many planets abandoned due to widespread loss of technological knowledge. Though this war ended with an uneasy truce, the Second Succession War began less than a decade later, and even more destruction was unleashed. The Lost Tech era, 2865 to 3025. By the end of the Second Succession War and the beginning of the Third, the great houses have sustained considerable losses, with the most advanced technology of the Star League labeled as Lost Tech. The Third Succession War descended into almost 200 years of constant low-level warfare, as the great houses were suffering the consequences of their past follies. Renaissance, from 3026 to 3049. Towards the end of the Third Succession War, the great houses were able to make small gains at recovering some of what have been lost over the past centuries. It is marked by the Helm Memory Core discovery, which brought to humanity the promise that it would be able to claw its way back on many lost technologies. In 3022, both the FedCom Accords and the Concord of Captain will define 2 power blocks that will ignite the Fourth Succession War. The only conflicts that seems to have provided a clear winner with the emergence of the new Federated Commonwealth as the most powerful nation since the original Star League. While the FedCom state dominated the Ionosphere like no power before the start of the Succession Wars, this didn't lead to the end of the fighting. Numerous conflicts, such as the Endurian Crisis, the Ronin War, and the War of 3039, made clear the expectation that another Succession War would begin as soon as the Federated Commonwealth sought to unite the Ionosphere under one rule once more. collapse from 3050 to 3080. As a probable fifth succession war was looming on the horizon, a mysterious force invaded the core ward region of the Ionosphere. Those invaders, called the clans, are the descendants of the SLDF troops, forged into a society dedicated to be the greatest fighting force in history and to reclaim the Ionosphere as its birthright. While vastly superior technologically and conquering many worlds during the clan invasion, the clan's own hubris would provide enough time for their enemies to forge a new Star League, as well as being a catalyst for another and greater technological renaissance in the Ionosphere. The clan threat eventually lessened due to the costly infighting, especially during the Refusal War, and the complete destruction of an invading clan by the Second Star League with Operations Bulldog and Serpent. As the massive external threat was apparently being neutralized, internal conflicts exploded across the Ionosphere. The most prominent one, the Fedcom Civil War, would shatter the once powerful Federated Commonwealth through 5 long years of bitter civil war. Following the Fedcom Civil War, the leaders of the Great Houses will meet and disband their new Star League, declaring it a sham. In response, a splinter group of Comstar, the Word of Blake, would openly criticize them and start their Blakist Purge against all humanity. A conflict so great that it would pit every faction against each other and even against themselves. Widespread usage of weapons of mass destruction became common practice for the first time in centuries, while new and frightening technologies were likewise unleashed. The Republic era from 3081 to the present. The Republic era was made possible with the crushing defeat of the Word of Blake by a gathered coalition and thereafter the foundation of the Republic of the Sphere. This new power at the very center of the Ionosphere led massive disarmament programs, downsizing existing armies and removing war materials in the hands of private individuals. This era encompassed 3 sub-eras: the Early Period, Dark Age, and Hill Clan. Early Republic, 3081 to 3131, was an overall peaceful time throughout the Ionosphere, despite raiding and small-scale wars. The Republic ideals upheld the status quo, despite resistance from the clans and the Great Houses. The Dark Age, 3132 to 3150, was opened with the collapse of the HPG network during the event of Grey Monday. Humanity was suddenly thrusted back to the early years of the bygone Age of War, making the governance of the interstellar empires very difficult, if not impossible. Soon enough, pro-military factions among the clans and the Great Houses will take action against the Republic of the Sphere. To make matter worse, even rivals factions within the Republic would speed its own collapse, as an alliance of the clans will mark the end of the Republic itself with a planned full-scale invasion aimed at Terra. The Hill Clan, from 3151 to the present, marks a new wave of conflicts not seen in nearly a century, as the clans and Great Houses wage war against each other in the ruins of the Republic of the Sphere. With the capture of Terra by the clans, a Hill Clan is finally proclaimed, with the refoundation of the Star League and the rise of a new First Lord. While I took some liberties in this record to provide another set of eyes on the historical demarcation of the BattleTech setting, it isn't a critic on Catalyst Game Labs or the prior owners and the fans themselves for the official eras defined by the technologies and the means used for each era on the gameplay side of it. Those eras being the Star League, Succession Wars, Clan Invasion, Civil War, Blakist Purge, Dark Age, and Hill Clan. I will also admit that my personal decision to have the Hill Clan era as a sub-era inside the Republic era is still very much a subject to change, as the setting will move forward in what seems to be nothing else than a second Age of War.